Sergeant Baker started talking with a bullhorn in his hand. He was cool, he was clear, he was always in command. He said, blood will flow here, Padre. Padre, you talk to your boys. Trust in me, God will come to set you free.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard. When Uncle Sam is the one who belongs in the exercise yard. We all got balls and brains. My son's got balls and chains. At the local dance, at the local county jail. Load up, load up, load up, rubber bullets. Load up, load up, load up, rubber bullets.
Is it really such a crime for a guy to spend his time
At the local dance, at the local county jail. At the local dance, at the local county jail.
What you gonna do? What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
Hi guys, welcome back to a new video. Today, as you could probably guess from the intro and obviously the title of the video, look at a member British Army in Northern Ireland from the mid to the late 70s. So this soldier is portraying on riot duties or anti-riot duties in say Belfast or Londonderry and places of that nature. Okay. Obviously, the Troubles, I've covered it in a previous video before, span from 1969 up until 2007, well, op banner I should say, and yeah, from 1969 up to 2007 when the operation officially ended. Okay, going from top to bottom, we have the Mark IV steel helmet, or with the Mark V liner inside. And this one has been retrofitted for anti-riot duties, or riot duties, I should say. So it has the visor, sort of like a makeshift kind of deal what they came up with. Sort of the later parts of Aden, this began to sort of like be issued to troops, and then obviously became more prevalent in Northern Ireland. So we have a steel band, which has been bent into a certain shape, so it goes inside, up, attached to the top of the lift the dot pin at the top, comes back round and then loops back round, and the visor itself screws into the side. And it's basically just like screwed in the sort of a perspex visor on top. So I'll quickly give you a quick show. So as I said, this is a Mark IV helmet with the Mark V liner. So the Mark V liner is the sort of elasticated jumper style of liner, and it's like a spider with a lifter dot system to get it out. This has the the later nylon style of 3-point harness, so it's secure in the back, and the 2 points at the front. Much more thinner than the usual elasticated strap, but it was gave much better stability. It's still crap in the way of keeping it on your head, but it's much better than having just a normal standard strap that was on the normal helmet, that was standard on the helmets at the time. So as I said, it's so this one is 1972 actually. So it was quite an early one, but it began to be more prevalent more later. But these weren't as produced as much as say the ones with just the normal chin strap. But yeah, so that's that. So a lot of confusion about these helmets. People say, "Oh, these are the Mark V's with this liner." No, it's the Mark IV shell with the Mark V liner. The Mark V is with the liner itself. This liner itself is, so if we can find the date. Here we are. It is 1972 as well. So the whole, the liner and the chin strap, or the 3-point chin strap, well, chin harness and head harness, 1972. I think the shell itself is probably 72 as well, I believe. But yeah, that's the helmet itself. The visor comes all the way down, locks into place. It does make it very, very unwieldy. It rocks about a lot. It tends to, if this is slightly loose, it moves around a lot. If it's on the back, it lifts up the helmet. Obviously, this was sort of a stopgap measure in a way. You would see another stopgap, which was the Cromwell helmet, which was basically like a motorbiker's helmet, which was introduced with the same visor system, put on there with a sort of retrofit sort of bracket on the back. Effective for what it was, but it was just a stopgap. When the British Army eventually adopted the Mark VI helmet, that came with its own Riot visor system, which was more integral and was more better suited to what was needed with, say, anti-riot duties, etc. So that's the helmet itself. Let's put that to one side. Looking at the mannequin itself, the main part of the kit really is the flak jacket, or the flak vest, or the fragmentation vest. Many different names. This, I believe, as the designation is M76. I think this one was made in 1976 itself. M68, but basically it's a sort of venture on from the American ones, which were used by the British early on in Northern Ireland. So this one has the added rifle buffer pad, so to help you secure your rifle butt in the shoulder better. With sort of rubber. There's different designs of these and different makers and very much variations. This one has the collar. On the early examples you see around 1969, 1970, 71, they generally don't have a collar, but some of them do. It's a bit of a mishmash. It depends what they've got really. As I said, a lot of the flak jackets used in the early part of Northern Ireland, or Banner I should say anyway, were, say, ex-American stock, just recoded with all the American stock numbers, like what was used in the Vietnam War. Some of them still had remnants of who had been wearing them basically before. That was how sort of knew they were from American stocks in that sort of sense. So as I said, this is, I think, as far as I remember, I'll take another look at the label when I'll get it off in a bit and show you, etc. And I'll do a couple of pictures at the end of the video. But I believe this is like 1976 dated, or 1978, I can't exactly remember. But this design was used basically through the early part of the 70s, all the way through into the adoption of the newer sort of body armour, which was adopted later on in the 80s, which was more the integral, which was generally worn underneath the smock. So, as I said, two buffer shoulder pads to sort of help you with the butt of your rifle. Two large Velcro down pockets in the front, i.e. for like a radio, like a Pocket Phone 70, which was typical of this period, sort of mid to late 70s. The Pocket Phone 70. Sometimes the PRC, or the Klansman PRC 349. A little bit larger than what was really needed, but the pocket phone and things like that were quite prevalent. Had a fairly short range, but they were used by sort of the RUC, etc. I'll link a couple of videos to them in the description below, so you can have a look at those. I don't have one myself, sadly, Working ones or ones which have all the parts with them are very difficult to come by nowadays, or have a bit of a hefty price with them, which is a shame. But yeah, so 2 pockets on the front could be used for, say, as I said, like the pocket phone, which is a radio, I should say. So it's a radio, or like your notebook, etc. Got a torch in there. Used, not used, depends on when the patrol is. Depends on what you need to look for, especially like it's a useful tool, the torch. If you see at the neck, got a scrim scarf, keep things off the neck, keeps you cool as well, and also keeps you kind of warm at the same time. It lets you breathe, etc. But it also protects your neck. So especially on the streets of Belfast or Londonderry, in the sort of autumn or even like the spring or the winter, it's very cold, obviously. So it just keeps a protection in the neck and also stops anything getting in as well. If anything's like glass or bottles or bits of anything really, when you're on say patrol or riot duty. Underneath we have the 68 pattern smock, standard British Army garment at the time, or smock at the time I should say. Obviously introduction was 1968, but you didn't really see them much until say the early, sort of 72, 73 onwards really, is when they became more prevalent. And they're sort of fading out, the 60 pattern and the 66 DPM as well. But they were still, the 66, so DPM version of the 60 pattern was still seen well on into the 80s as well. But yeah, so about this time, this is, I think it's a slightly later one, sort of late 70s, early 80s, because it's sort of more darker tinge to it. I might have my things wrong on that. But yeah, basically it's a 68 pattern. Below that, we have some 58 pattern belt equipment. Basically, so we have the belt. It's very, very lightweight order because you're not going to want to be carrying full kit and full webbing when you're on the streets patrolling, or, as I say again, anti-riot duties. So 58 pattern belt, we have one magazine pouch on one side, carrying about 2 magazines. Depends on what the patrol was, it depends on what the duty was, and sort of how much ammunition, how many magazines, or whatever you were allocated for that said operation you were going on, or patrol or whatever. General thing is about 3 magazines, one on the rifle, unloaded, and then say when situation came, you would get cop, depending on what your yellow card said. You had like a yellow card system. I'm trying to remember of actions to take or when in province, basically, of how to deal with certain situations. So possibly like maybe 1 or 2 extra magazines will be carried, depending. Many guys may disagree with that, but it was always a case of difference is between, say, regiment to regiment, and also what the situation was, as I put. So magazine patch on one side, water bottle on the other. Obviously you're going to need some water in case you come into contact with, say, if the wind changes, so that when tear gas is being used, if you haven't got your respirator on, obviously it's useful for that. Obviously for treating casualties, and also keeping yourself hydrated. That's the main thing. When you're in this stuff, it doesn't matter how cold it is. When you're constantly moving with this on, it gets difficult. Sometimes, yeah, you might get used to it, but at the end of the day, this will make you sweat. There's not a lot of room here to breathe. You will sweat. You will sweat buckets wearing this thing. It's not the most pleasant piece to get. It's cumbersome, especially with the collar. It's very restrictive. It rubs a lot as well. The earlier ones without the collar were probably a bit more movable, but again, this gives you more protection with the collar. Quick thing I'll go back to, these aren't bulletproof. They weren't meant to be bulletproof. They're anti-fragmentation. So basically, like from fragments from grenades or falling debris, glass, etc. Also from blunt force as well. It gives you that bit more protection. It's like a ballistic. It's not. I don't believe it's a Kevlar, but it's like a ballistic nylon type of deal going on with all the fibers, etc. in the sort of jacket. This thing itself is completely like separate. So it's like in the over part of it. This can be taken off, and the ballistic sort of vest part itself is separate, so it can be removed if, say, it's damaged, etc. And then another one can be slotted in. They have basically like a lifespan. So if someone's needs to be taken out because of any reason, really, it can be easily removed, basically from the bottom, and then it can slide out. Okay, if you can see around the waist, this is the strap for the respirator or the resi bag. This is basically just here. I put it around this to give it more stability whilst it's on the mannequin, but also it was worn in this sort of manner, i.e. just with the strap or just on the belt. I've done both, so it's more secure, keeps it up more, and also stops it from shaking as much as well. A bit more secure in that sort of way, and yeah, it's much more better for that sort of reason. Okay, so I'll stop here. I'll spin it round, and we'll have a look at the side. Okay, now we look at the side. One thing I didn't mention, which I should have really, which is probably one of the most sticking out pieces, literally, is this. This is the Riot baton. Obviously for dealing with assailants or anyone who comes towards the guard line. This is very, very typical of the batons used at that period. Slightly longer than most police batons you'll see. This has its stock number on the bottom, which is that. So 4280717. So have a leather strap to put around the wrist or put around the hand, twist it round or keep it sort of more secure, etc. like that. Gives you good reach. So when you say you have a shield, you have this. It can give you good reach, and generally practice was to go for the legs, etc. So it will incapacitate someone on that sort of thing, on that sort of level, and to go towards the legs, and then if need be, a bit more brute force with it. This sort of stuff isn't pretty. It's meant to. Its main purpose was to basically keep standoff, was to keep distance, was to deter, say, rioters coming to the line itself, and then getting into sort of brawls or getting into close combat with, say, the guys who are on the right line with the shields, etc. But that's its main duty, is to subdue an assailant, subdue a rioter, whatever they be doing, really. So that's in the Riot baton. Typical of the period, you see a lot in footage and photos. When not in use, if they are being carried, you see it slipped in here, so into the sort of arm bit. So you've still got most of the movement in the arm when it's there. Also, say if you're right-handed, you've still got room for your shoulder, for the stock of the rifle when being used. Sometimes you'll see these being carried as well as the standard service rifle, or whatever weapon being used, really, or obviously the shield. So you don't have to. You have your hand free, so you can slip it in there. And it's not too encompassing, really. They're fairly light. It's like a bit of timber, but it's got a good swinging out, and because of the length as well, you can get a good reach on it as well. As I said, the leather strap there to keep you from losing it out of your hand. So looking at the side again, we can see the right sleeve, the left-hand sleeve of the jacket, of the 6-step pattern jacket. So we have the pocket here. I believe this was for maybe a dressing, or I'm trying to remember, either a dressing pocket or say for pens, etc., or anything of that nature. So I think, yeah, it's a pen pocket. My mistake. Completely forgot. Yeah, it's a pen pocket. So yeah, so button cuffs like there. So there's two positions there, so you get a more tighter fit on it. Underneath this is the KF shirt, the khaki flannel shirt, or quickly known as the Hairy Mary. Keeps you warm, but it's goddamn itchy. Horrible thing to wear over a long period. I just lift the sleeve out the way. We can see the elasticated cord that binds together the flak jacket, so it keeps it snug to the chest, etc. And also, because it's elasticated, gives you a bit more movement. Again, not the most comfortable garment. Well, near to very, very uncomfortable when it is, especially when it's hot. I've worn this in like 30-degree weather at shows, etc., and it's not pleasant. It is really not pleasant, and that's just like at a display. So it can be very encompassing. So you see the side of the pouch. Bayonet has been removed. By this point, bayonets were completely out from being used on the streets. basically because it's just an opportunity waiting to happen. For say you're on the defense on the line, someone could easily come up, remove the bayonet, and then they got a weapon. Saying you might just have your baton and a shield, they've now got a knife. So it's very, very off the tables. They're seen a lot in sort of 69, 70, but from then on, they were to be not taken in to the streets at all, really, at all. You see those photos of British soldiers with fixed bayonets and guard in the streets of like Londonderry or Belfast, but that was completely out by sort of the early 70s onwards. Okay, so I'll stop here, turn it around to the back, and we'll have a look at the back. Okay, now we're looking at the back. As you see the flat back of the flak vest, and the sort of seams on the edges, and the sort of slightly way it's sort of not been reinforced, but I think it's like there's more reinforcing on the inside of the elbows itself, but there's more sort of a heavy seam down there. And then also we see the respirator bag. So standard respirator being carried at this time is S6. Some footage and some photos it's not being carried, but mainly say within a riot context, or when riot gear is being worn, generally the respirator is being carried as well. Generally because if tear gas is going to be used, or smoke, etc., also with any sort of reason, the respirator is probably a good idea. Gives you a bit more protection from other things as well as say having the visor down on the helmet as well. So, as I said, standard respirator is the S6. So we have this is mainly sort of filled out for say British Army the Rhine, but it's generally what have been carried in the respirator anyway this period. So S6 respirator, typical of that period, and what was being worn by say the SAS on the Iranian embassy siege in the 1980s, or in 1980 I should say. So yeah, this is a 1967 dated one, I believe. Yep, made by Avon. That just slips in there like that. So we have the inner and the outer gloves there, and also the all other accoutrements of the respirator bag itself. And as I said, the strap goes round, but I've also put it on the sleeve just for extra security, mainly on the mannequin. Some guys may have done it like this, maybe not, but this is how I've done it, just to keep it a bit more secure. Not much else to talk about on the back here, really. You could probably just see like the side of the water bottle pouches there, and other things like that. But I'll turn around and we'll look at the other side, and then we'll walk on to finishing up then. Okay, now we're looking at this side. Let's move it out of the way. Move the arm out of the way. Not really much to see on this arm anyway. Water bottle pouch, as I said, carrying the 58 water bottle and cup. So I've just opened this. There we go. Just slips in there. So the bottle and the cup is down the bottom here. So that's just there, and you can see the strap that comes round to the respirator bag, and here's the cord that you can tie around your chest if you're wearing the respirator bag in your chest itself, or over your head and your neck. So cottons back to sort of the earlier style of respirators, say during the First War and Second, and then over the head, on the chest, at the ready position. So yeah, so that's the water bottle, and as I said, the other side of the flak jacket with the elasticated cord to keep it more to the body. So I'll turn it around to the front, and then we'll wrap up the video. Okay, now we're back to the front. As I said, Operation Banner went from 1969 to 2007. Obviously, it was winding down after the Good Friday Agreement, but there were certain situations and incidents that happened post the Good Friday Agreement, which sought to disturb the peace. People have their opinions on, say, the peace itself, the Good Friday Agreement, and also what happened post that, and obviously just prior. I have my own opinions, but I won't put them out here because that's not what it's for. It's a very hot topic, and quite a challenging topic to cover in Northern Ireland in general. People have their own affiliations, say with one side or the other, or are outside looking in, trying to sort of figure out what's going on. Very, very complicated situation. It's not just one group against another. It's not just one religion, or Catholics versus Protestants, etc., or loyalists versus Republicans. It's very, very complicated. There's many different sides. There's many different things and many different catalysts to the entire concoction of the situation, really. So yeah, politics aside, this is the British soldier around sort of the mid or early mid to late 70s, going into sort of the early 80s as well, where things started to be sort of changed and replaced. But most of this was staying similar right from, say, 1973 onwards, basically, until, say, the late 80s. The standard service rifle, actually, before I go, is the SLR, and the self-loading rifle, the A1A1. Standard by this point replaced the standard number 4 rifle in the late 50s, and by this point we're beginning to see the plastic furniture. So I've shown it in a video before. So the A1A1 SLR, or the British version of the FN FAL, Fabrique Nationale. So we're starting to see plastic furniture. So the plastic furniture was introduced because it was either to decontaminate, it didn't swell in heat, like say the wooden furniture did, which tended to crack a lot as well. And the plastic furniture was much easier to produce and replace, in the way of, like, as I said, easy to produce, put another set on, it's not too much for the wood stuff, much more expensive, and can be much more of a problem, and it can be decontaminated, say with obviously with the roles that the British Army had in Europe, in Germany, etc., having to contend with the threat of possible nerve agents or chemical agents being used. You couldn't decontaminate them. And obviously, with, say, Northern Ireland, it's very, very much a better solution than the wood ones, say, because of, say, petrol bombs or tear gas, etc. It's much more easier to clean. One of the, in regards to the rifle being used in the situation in Northern Ireland, obviously it was being used, carried all the time for self-defense and also for offense if need be. There was situations that came up where it was seen the rifle could be taken away from the soldier in, say, a right situation, or when the crowd got too close. So it was seen as, like, if rifles with slings, the sling wasn't to be used in its normal role because it could be easily just snatched away from the soldier, and it wasn't very useful. So it was deemed that the front end of the sling was to be removed, put back into a loop, put around the wrist or up to the forearm, to then stop the rifle being taken away from the soldier. So if someone was able to grab the barrel, for example, and pull it away, even if they lost grip, they would still have hold of the weapon in some sort of context, either by, obviously, it just snagging on there, or you're able to grab the actual sling itself before it gets loose at your grip. Okay, that wraps up the video basically. So I really, really hope you enjoyed. Sorry if I dragged on or waffled on for a bit, but hopefully that goes into enough detail. I'll obviously put some pictures of, say, the labels, etc., from inside the flak vest. I'll try and get some pictures from inside the smock itself, but might be a bit difficult. But I'll get some more pictures of the helmet though, because this liner, not the liner, but the suspension and chin strap system is fairly rare actually in regards to these helmets. These helmets are getting rare themselves, and that suspension system is very rare. It's very sort of prototypey, scarce thing you sort of see. Mainly sort of the standard chin strap one you see, really. So yeah, I'll put some pictures of that up. I really, really hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'll put some other links in the description below to some other videos regarding the helmet or the Pocket Phone 70, as I mentioned. Also maybe some other little bits which are down to this as well. So really, really hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.